Welcome back to another episode of the We Get to Do This podcast, everyone.
This week we have a special edition recording live from Bellingham, Washington with the one and only Matt Welch.
AKA one of our run gurus and my coach. We talked a lot about running, life, mindset, and a bunch of other stuff, and we hope you enjoy the podcast.
Feel free to follow us, leave a 5-star review, give us some comments and feedback, and we hope you enjoy this one because we sure did.
Peace.
Bye.
Live from Bellingham. We get to do this. This is our first in-person pod with someone.
Wow.
Since Taylor in Montana last year.
True, but that was also on his, and we ran it.
That's true.
So this is pretty.
This is an honor.
Yeah,
this is a special edition episode.
Wow.
And I know
in my apartment
Yeah.
in Bellingham, Washington.
We have some great views of the Puget Sound.
Some great views that
Eagle.
the listeners and the viewers can't see.
But trust us.
Promise
They're there.
it's there. It's incredible.
It's a really pretty sunset last night, sunrise this morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're here today joined by the one and only Matt Welch.
Funny enough, I think there's a lot of Matt Welches out there.
Really?
There is. I just recently found out that there's a politician named Matt Welch.
Ah,
So I Google my name
Mm-hmm.
because obviously I have to Google
Who
my name
doesn't?
every once
Yeah.
in a while. And there's a politician named Matt Welch that kind of has a lot of space on Google. So
all right.
I have to do something way more spectacular than being a politician to then be the first search result popping up. So
After this episode, though,
after this
He's
episode, this
popping
might be the one.
It could
who
be.
needs
This
Sidious
is-
Meg?
This is taking me to the
Yeah,
top.
but we get to do this podcast.
That's right.
All right, the one of many Matt Welch is on the pod today.
But we have
One of
the Matt
many.
Welch.
The, at least the one that you guys know,
Yes.
right?
The most important one to us. That's what matters.
Most important one for me, too.
So, Matt, at the beginning of every episode, we ask our guests, who are you?
Mm.
What do you do? And why do you do it?
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit before we went on air, but I feel like those are really big questions to ask. And it shouldn't be that way, right? Because it's the simple what, why, how. But they seem to be the most oftentimes complicated questions to really put into words. So I'll do my best. I'll do my absolute best. My name is Matt Welch, right? Surprise, surprise. And that is my name. And I think who I am is more connected to what I value. And I think I value a lot of things in life, but I think most importantly is my own health. I really value the community that I'm a part of. I value the community there's community in a lot of different ways, but my family, my friends, my running community, and everything that encompasses. And I value progress for myself. Like, I think I really get motivated each and every day, trying to be a better version of myself and a more true version of myself. So I think that's part of who I am. And I think what I do in an action sense is a lot. I think I do too much oftentimes. I'm a social worker. I work for the health department, and I specialize in working with high utilizers of 911 and the ER locally. And I find a lot of joy in that work, and it feels very fulfilling. I am also a semi-elite runner. I think formally elite, but I think I'm definitely moving towards the semi-elite category. I ran at the Olympic trials in 2020, 2024, and I'm striving again for the 2028 Marathon Olympic trials. So that's kind of my big 3.5-year plan and goal for myself. So that's still a big part of my life. I just recently launched a new business, the Aerobic Group, which is a holistic focus on run coaching. So we talk a lot about, the run coaching element, periodizing that properly, how to incorporate strength training as well. and then the nutrition aspects, the mental performance tool aspects, and then like the prehab injury prevention parts of training. So that's been a lot to juggle, and I lead a weekly group run with that business. I don't know what else. I feel like I do a lot. Just existing feels like a lot sometimes right now in life. So I'm rambling now, but the why, right? The why behind it all, right? That's really what we're here for. Why? And I think that's going to test me a little bit. I think I am very fulfilled with my days and my life when I'm able to contribute, and I'm able to contribute my whole being to somebody else or some greater mission, much larger than myself. And I think that's why I like working with a very vulnerable population with my work. But I think that's also why I really like coaching athletes, because it's a way to capture this excitement that they have about their own growth trajectory, and then me being a tiny little piece in that puzzle. And that makes me feel very jazzed each and every day to show up and to offer myself to others. And sometimes I even think it's selfish, right? I think I'm actually like the one benefiting more from giving myself to others. And that really is a huge value that I hold. So I think that's my why, I think.
I love it.
Yeah, one of them. I'm sure there's lots of them, right? And I think it changes, that it ebbs and flows each and every day. Micro-wise, macro-wise,
Right.
cycles, seasons.
Yeah. I'm so excited to listen to this and then also listen to you on the JJM podcast. Oh, we're sure going to do that.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm just to see the difference and how you like answer things. I don't even remember what Josh asked you, but
yeah, I think so this is about 5 years ago.
Yeah, when we first met, or like when I first heard about you, that was like 5 years ago when you were on.
And I can picture myself at 25 years old, just being very rigid, right? Like rigid in the ways that I interacted with the world, how I interacted with myself. And I think why I have such a hard time at times capturing like a what, why, how is because it feels so gray. Like it's just so like movable for me. And I'm just like always just kind of like listening to my heart, my soul, and then kind of taking action based on what that's communicating with me. And so like that's pretty hard to capture in words, right?
Right.
So I feel like that's a big difference. I'm going to be curious what you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a very good lesson for all of our runners to hear too, to not be so, I feel like a lot of us are very rigid, and knowing that things will change, that we are dynamic human beings, like is just very good.
And running, I think, attracts like that, the type A folks,
Oh, yeah.
right? Like they're like really organized spreadsheets, tracking times, distances, heart rate, like really just the numbers people, or people who are really curious about that. And then the complication of it for sure is then you lose sight of like yourself in that piece of the puzzle, right? Then you're just so
And why you're doing it.
Exactly, the why behind it, yeah. And then you're just so focused on the external, part of training, racing, whatever it might be. And when you really strip it down, like it really is just you, and usually a choice that you make because you want to, right?
We get to.
Yes, yeah. Like there's privilege in it for sure. Yeah. I think it's cool.
Side note too, for the JJN podcast, I don't think we've ever talked about your old podcast on here.
No, I was just going to say that for those wondering, if you type in the JJN show, it was actually my first podcast with my brothers. So Matt was on that 5 years ago. Which is how we met. That's referencing, which is how we met.
Yep.
So we know each other for a while now. Speaking of being selfish.
That's me.
One of the questions I wrote down, normally with pods, I very much try to pick up something you say, the guest, and go with it.
We call that active listening.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what that is. Okay. I'm going to not do that.
Oh, you're not going to do that.
No, yeah. I have a specific question.
I'm actively listening now.
I have a specific topic that I feel like you've helped me a lot with. And when I think about like one thing I know that Matt could talk about on the pod, it's kind of the concept of like our identities and wrapping it into our running. Super deep. I know.
Yeah. Heavy hitters.
But seriously, with, Kailee and I and yourself, we've all worked with a lot of different athletes now. At this point, we're all athletes, and I know that we've all struggled with who are we outside of running in different levels. And I'm curious, kind of like when I just talk about self-identity, like where almost like where your mind even goes with that. But like what has that been like in your world? And that, it's just kind of super like,
oh yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I'm gonna have a lot of cop-out answers here, but I think there's this gray that exists with so many of these things. And I think with identity specifically, there's a enormous paradox with it because it can feel so empowering, right? Somebody who is just starting to feel good in their body and they're starting to run, and to claim I am a runner, right, is so incredibly reinforcing to that behavior. And I think that reinforces like really positive outcomes, really. And I think that can make, somebody more inclined to engage with a community, right? Because they have this identity that they hold and they want to engage with other people who share that identity. But I think, again, the flip side is if it is like your only identity, or if you have other things that you feel like contradict that identity as a runner. Like I think for myself, like I'm trying to still compete at a really high level, but I have all these other interests in my life, right? And all the other things that pull me in these different directions. And my identity as a runner is just one of my many identities. And it's like a hat that I put on. And I think one thing that I've really struggled with in the past has been like not willing to engage with anything else because I am just a runner and this is what I do. And I have to make these sacrifices. Otherwise, I'm not giving enough, right? Otherwise, I'm not like maximizing this identity that I hold for myself. So that's been, I think, a lot to grapple with. But I think the identity piece, it's challenging. It really is. And very personal. Like, I think like some people really struggle with it and others don't. What do you guys usually talk about with your athletes? Like when they're struggling with their, identity, whether they over-identify with running or maybe starting to embrace that identity for the first time.
Flipped it back. I don't know.
Yeah.
Flipped it back. Damn.
We're interviewing you here.
Oh, wait a second.
I mean, I notice when I have this conversation with people, it's because they've come to me with an injury where now they can't run.
Yeah.
Because they've gotten a stress fracture that now they're out for the rest of the season, or they broke something, or there's some kind of thing where now they can't run, and it's completely stripped away their identity as a runner. So that's when I do have that conversation with them of, I feel like it's like when I see this, people are like going through the stages of grief, basically, like coming, it's the anger, it's the sadness, it's the grieving. And I think it's important to allow people to feel all those emotions. And I also talk about the longevity piece of, I'm sorry that you're dealing with this right now. Like that sucks so much, but not trying to just, be toxic and be like, but think of the future, but like having it in their mind, like this isn't the end. And this is a good time to figure out like your identity. And now this is a good time to spend time with friends, spend time with family.
Yeah.
What can you do still?
Yeah.
Can you still bike? Can you walk? Can you hike? But yeah, I feel like that's how I have my conversations around is usually they've come to me with like when they've hit a wall with identity.
And I feel like that's such a great example is with the injury piece, because I think that is an area where people struggle with most oftentimes is when they have like a full race calendar set for a year and training's going really well. They're really engaged and excited about how things are going. And then it's kind of stripped away.
Yeah.
Because something happened. And yeah, I myself have experienced a grieving process. I think that's really hard. And I feel like, we've even had this conversation before of it always being an opportunity, right? To kind of get better at the little things, right? And taking care of yourself in different ways in the midst of an injury. But that has to be a reframe, right? And the reframe takes a lot of energy, and you have to be in a place of readiness, I think, to accept it. And I think, so like you mentioned, I think having space for somebody to grieve is important. And for anybody listening, I think allow yourself that space to grieve too. If you are experiencing an injury or if you're grappling with this identity piece, that, it's a process and it takes time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
On my subjective intake form, my Google form that I have everyone fill out before I meet with them for the first time, one of the questions is, it's something along the lines of, what do you do for fun? Like outside of endurance.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to almost establish that connection as a coach with athletes right away.
Yeah.
Like you meet with someone and the first thing they want to talk about is, I want to go for this time goal, this distance goal, whatever. And, I'm very interested in that. But as a coach, teacher, mentor, I feel like oftentimes people are almost surprised. And like one of the first things I kind of say back is like, I detour almost a little bit from that. Cause I'm like, I hear that all the time. Right. And I want to know, like, I'm curious, like, what do you do outside of running? What's your job? Do you like your job? Depending on who they are, like, what's your family life like? What's your house life like? All of that. Like, and I think establishing that and talking about that early before is something that I've been trying to work on too.
Yeah.
That's been helping, and kind of shifting athletes' mindsets.
Yeah. Cause we coach people,
Yeah.
not robots, right?
Right.
Not running robots. I think it'd be at times easier to coach running robots, right? Cause it's literally just plug and play. But I think when you're working with messy humans, right, it's a holistic look at who they are, what their life is like, and how training can fit into it in a sustainable way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the value of hiring a coach and working with a coach, right? Is that coach should then be able to sit down with you and orient your training appropriately to your needs. So if you have kids at home and you work a full-time job, how you can still get in the training that you need to run a sub 5-hour marathon. Because a lot of the chat GPT plans that you could try to find probably wouldn't get you there in the same way.
Right.
I think working with a coach would.
Right.
So I like that. And I feel like I hope this is a case in our relationship as an athlete coach.
Oh yeah, Matt's my coach.
FYI.
We didn't. Whoops.
And we've been working together for quite some time now.
Yeah.
2 years?
Almost 2 years. You've probably been my longest coach besides like high school cross country, I guess.
Wow. It's an honor.
Yeah.
It's a privilege.
Thanks for being around.
And I hope that you get that I really try to work with you as a person, right? And then I feel like we're constantly making adjustments to your schedule of training because that's what fits into your life though, right? Because I think that's what's sustainable. And you have so many hats that you wear, right? And things that fill your cup. And I think as a coach and as a support person for you, like I want to support all those pieces. Because in supporting all those pieces, I think it's also going to, improve your running the most, really. Because I think things in isolation usually don't work out too well in the long run, sometimes in the short run. But
well, and even with us traveling right now, so we've been in a camper van for a week, and I'm training for trails for an ultra. Jacob is not, but like having his identity not just be around just like strict roads and speed.
Yes.
And being okay with, which we're working through this too.
Keep it coming. Help me.
Yes.
We're working toward like with being okay with running up a mountain right now. And that's still like in my mind, building that fitness maybe it's not super specific to marathon training, but like having that flexibility and willingness to adapt to where you're at. And I think because you were just in Alaska, correct? So
Yeah.
I'm sure similar with you
Yeah.
weren't on your.
I was not on my regular training plan. I was hiking more so and bouldering, right? Climbing up mountains, and that's not typical. But I think one thing that maybe isn't rooted in science, but I think rooted in my philosophy is that our bodies don't really clock specific workouts. They clock like fatigue, right? And stress. And if you stress things again on average in the right ways over the cycle, that's what matters most. So if you're like maybe not offering that specific stress in the way that, would be most ideal for the marathon, every once in a while, I don't think that has any impact at all, you know? And I think it's really good to loosen that grasp too, to just be so flexible with it. Because I think you have more fun, the more flexible you are. Running on the trails is a blast, right? So much more fun than running on the roads.
I'm getting better.
Yeah.
I'm getting better.
Yeah.
Last year was way different when we were on the trip versus this year.
Oh, yeah. We've learned a lot about each other since.
Way different.
But even like being in the mountains, like I've heard once, like you should try to find awe. I mean, ideally 8 daily, but like having that sense of like awe and wonder.
Ooh, I love that.
And when I'm out in the mountains, I'm just like, holy smokes, this is like so beautiful. We are so lucky that we get to do this.
Yeah.
And to me, that's so much more valuable and impactful than if I were to just be on the same road doing the same run every single day.
And I think a lot of that comes down to intention too. Like I think oftentimes when you're in those spaces, like you're really engaged with your body and the space, and you are coming to it with such gratitude. And I think oftentimes, at least for myself, I fall into the trap of like doing a track workout or running a workout on the roads. And I kind of just like zone out, right? I'm not really engaged. I'm not really intentional with like what's happening in my body. And I think that's okay. I think sometimes, but I think that's what's so great about trail running and stretching yourself in a different way too, is because then you're forced to kind of be presently focused in ways that maybe you aren't typically if you're just doing the same running loop or the same track workout or whatever it might be. So that's something I really like. And I really like with the ultra runners that I work with, I love having them do speed work, right? I love stretching them in different ways, right?
I do speed.
Yeah.
Today you did every week. Yeah, speed today.
This morning.
Like speed, because I think it's, I think it's really good physiologically, but I think it's really good psychologically as well. Because it's just like a different shift, right? And you're just coming at it with a different focus. Same with, sometimes I'll just put athletes on a bike, right? It's no like benefit, of like maybe biking over running, but again, it's just to like change things slightly, to maybe spice things up a little bit and re-engage some intention and some focus.
Well, and last night we were talking to you about strength training and how when you have that intention versus just like going through the motions of your lift, you get such different results.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. I wish that I was like a Huberman and could like cite a specific paper. I couldn't, but I know that I have read that at some point, that really there are tremendous physiological benefits to being intentional with your workouts. So that's something that I constantly test myself with, and I think something that I encourage with the athletes that I coach.
I love it. I think we have time for one more thought / question.
Then we get to do this one.
Because then
How is this already?
I know.
We have another run to hit though.
Yeah. Speaking of running, we're going to Matt's group run tonight.
That's right. Tag along Thursdays, we call it.
The Bellingham area. Or not. You can fly out too.
You could. Yeah, you could fly.
We drove cross country just for this run.
Just for this run, yeah.
So,
do a nice little speed workout this morning and then a little secondary run.
Another little jog tonight.
Yeah.
not that it's our only identity, but
No.
it's community.
It is. Yeah, and I think that's a value that we all hold, right? I can sense that, and you guys do some really cool things in the Twin Cities area too with community.
We definitely try to. You've been running for a very long time. at least, 18 plus years?
Probably started really getting into it in 8th grade.
Okay.
So how old are you when you're in 8th grade? 14?
14.
30 years old.
Okay.
16 years.
16. We're going to say 15 plus. That sounds really
15 plus. Yeah, that's
great. What do you feel like you get to give one longevity piece of advice? How do you keep
Whoa.
runners? What do you think, like one thing that everyone listening to this, anyone that runs, if you could have every single person do to keep them running for longer periods of time, not even necessarily healthy, but just like staying in the sport, right? You know what I'm saying? What do you think they would do?
Ooh,
How about these philosophical questions?
yeah, these are tough because so the first thing that comes to mind is like, because I think about myself and I think about a lot of my peers, and I think the number one thing that I would suggest is train less, right? And don't train as hard. But I don't think that applies for everybody. I think a lot of people don't train hard enough, right? Who are maybe just getting started. So I think there's like don't train as hard for like the top 10%, and then probably train harder for a lot of other people. But I think longevity, I would actually say focus on the things outside of running more, right? That I think improve your running. The sleep, really try to dial in your sleep, dial in your nutrition. I just recently found out that I think I've been chronically underfueled for years, right? I'm like running 100 miles a week and I'm like, 3,500 calories is enough, right? And like 70 grams of protein. I'm a vegan, and I was schooled in the vegan world. But I've made some huge changes and I have not had an injury in a long time. And I've been chronically injured my whole career. And then, so I would say sleep, nutrition, and then finding joy in as many moments as possible with your running. So if that joy is self-improvement as a lone wolf, awesome, great. Like do your thing. But if that's connecting with your friends on a run or going to group runs and that brings you joy, just try to capture as many moments as possible, and prioritize that piece of your running, because I think that'll sustain you in moments of difficulty.
I really like that. I really think the whole runner should be doing things outside of running more. Yeah. I think that's something that's huge. And that goes back to the identity stuff too.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And I wish that I could like have these concrete, like, this is how you do it. This is what I mean by that. But I think it really is so individual and it really is vague. And I think it's like really gray for essential reasons, because I think we're like messy beings, right? And anything I say maybe would work for me, but it wouldn't work for anybody else. So I think it's our own personal missions to try to figure out what works for us and how we can balance an identity as a runner or as any other athlete, and everything else that we hold dear in our life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why we ask you the big questions.
The big question. That's right.
We'll have you on again and we'll do some virtual stuff. And I want to do a coaching call with you and have I think that'd be really cool for I think I've told you this, but have like our listeners hear how their coach so a lot of my athletes listen, right? So hearing how their coach gets coached, I think is a really interesting concept.
Yeah. I think that would direct my thought process in a more narrow way.
Yeah.
Which I think would be good.
No,
sorry for this on right now.
That's exactly what I want. That's why I asked you the big questions,
Well, it's called holistic run coaching. Like that's what both of you talk about.
Yes,
so
this is very true.
What it's all about.
Right.
So, and being an individualist.
Yeah.
We need to wrap up, but Matt, we always end our podcast with asking, what is your we get to do this moment from today, from your entire life, last year? What's a time when you've been like, wow, I get to do this?
I feel like I've had many moments, and I think I frequently have moments of gratitude and awe of my ability to physically do something or engage with other people in the way that brings me a lot of joy. But I think literally the first thing that came to mind, I spent in college 4 years at the University of Minnesota and then transferred to the University of Portland for my last year as a collegiate athlete. And So this was 2018. Our cross-country team was second at NCAAs, and I was the fourth runner. And I went into that race not having raced in 6 months. I was dealing with an injury for the summer and early fall. So that was my first race. I had 5 weeks to prep for the national meet. And I remember being so grateful in that race and just so stoked that I had this opportunity to end my collegiate cross-country career at the national meet, running for a program and a team of brothers and people that I just love so dearly, and to ultimately achieve our goal, which is to be a podium finishing team that year. So I remember that being like one of the most magical moments of my life, is being able to do that alongside my team. And that was definitely I get to do that moment, and we get to do this moment. So yeah, that was the first one that came to mind.
I love it.
Yeah. Special.
Thanks for being on the pod.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us here
Guys,
this
you guys are awesome.
week. And
I know you said you have a tiny part or tiny impact in people's lives, but I mean, I can speak for Jacob. I think you've had a lot more than a tiny impact.
Yeah.
Smidge.
So, which then has transferred to me. So we really appreciate you.
Good. I'm really happy to hear that.
Yes.
It's a pleasure working with you.
Very great.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Well,
wow, Kailee, we made it through another episode. What do you think?
We would love if you would go give us a follow, a 5-star review, and comment on the episode and what you liked and what you'd like to see more of.
See you next time.
We get to do this.